And now it's time for Movies by Lucy.
I just want to tell you guys about a little incredible movie that just came out, Snow White. Wow. I just got to tell you, best movie I've seen in years, and there have been some really, really good films lately. Madam Web, Rebel Moon Part 1, that movie, that transgender one with the Mexican drug lord. But Snow White blows them all away. Chat, this movie has everything. Horrifying, CGI, little people, check. A feminist princess who don't need no man, double check. Diddy dance party at the end, double Diddy check. All this to say, go see Snow White right now. The new one. Not that old stupid one where the princess gets saved by some good, upstanding guy.
And now from Times Square, it's That Kevin Show.
2, 3, hey.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, breaking news with Mike Gonzales, Dr. Joel Veldkamp, and Ambassador Carla Sands. Actor John Michael Finley with a story about miracles. Sketch comedy from Nick Peterson, The Babylon Bee, and a cartoon from Al Berry. A visit from the disciples, Peter, Andrew, and John. And Big Daddy Weave has new music in the spotlight. And now, from Times Square, the only man in America to audition for one of the 7 dwarves, besides Peter Dinklage, here's the
You almost made me choke on that one, Dave. That was funny. That was funny. Yeah. I think I'm twice the size of Peter Dinklage.
Easily.
But if you can make all those people all those different sizes for Lord of the Rings, why can't I be a 7 dwarf?
Makes sense.
I wonder what dwarf do you think
Grumpy. Oh, we all talked about it. You'd be grumpy.
I think I'd was there a bossy dwarf? I think I'd be the bossy
No,
dwarf.
there wasn't a bossy dwarf.
Anyway, welcome to the weekend. Kevin McCullough, couldn't be happier than to have you on an enormous show. We have not one, but 3 of Jesus' disciples stopping by a little bit later. Shahar Isaac, Noah James, George Xanthus. You know them as Peter, Andrew, and John. Huge, huge stars in The Chosen. And they're going to be with us. And speaking of big movies, they had a killer weekend last weekend. In fact, when I was wanting to see how they did, and I took the kids, I took the family, the whole tribe, to go see part 1 of The Chosen season 5 because it's in theaters between now and Resurrection Sunday. You can go see it in different portions, and this weekend now they've moved into part 2. And so I'm going to try to sneak them out somehow. We've got a kids musical going on, all kinds of other crazy stuff going on in the house. But we're going to try to go see part 2. But last week I took them to see part 1, and I was so happy to see that part 1 on Friday, right out of the gate, bam, it just beat Snow White. And it did really well for the weekend. And it's going to do well. I think they're going to have a great run here in the month of April, leading up to Holy Week and everything that it entails. But some of my favorite disciples are back: Peter, Andrew, John, all on today's show, and I think you're gonna love that. And yeah, there's going to be a lot more said about the Snow White movie. I have a feeling in the days and weeks to come. Man, what a disappointment! What a disappointment! And I was kind of the opinion that I'm not sure Snow White needed to be redone, but they wanted to redo it, but they wanted to make it into this woke mess. And evidently that's how it's been received by the movie-going public. I know, it's done well. It's made millions. It's probably paid for itself. But Dinklage got upset because they didn't use any little people for the dwarfs. At least when Wizard of Oz did it, they told people they did it. In Snow White, they just CGI'd them, and evidently it was not that. Well, I guess the devil liked it, so there you go. All right. Did you notice something else that happened this week? It was called the Liberation Week. The president, who had campaigned on bringing financial fairness to the marketplace of global products, actually followed through on it, and on April, what was it, the 2nd or the 3rd this week, unleashed Liberation Day. I loved it. And I got kind of mad about something, and it wasn't the tariffs. I know there's a lot of people running around in the media that are like, oh, these tariffs are going to make prices go up. And there's not really any evidence that that's true. And even if there is a little bit of pain in the short haul, for us to get an even playing field with our products and us producing products again and us being a production nation again is all worth it, because that's going to mean jobs. That's going to mean economic activity for some towns and counties that have had really, really bad runs for the last 20 years. And it's just encouraging. But I got really upset that we've had a series of presidents, H.W. Bush, Clinton, GWB, Obama, Biden, all of them have sold us up the river on these situations where you have imbalance in trade. And so when we want to send, a cartwheel of Wisconsin cheese over to Europe, they slap a big fat tariff on that thing, and it's not even worth the price to send it at that point. It's so expensive. Whereas, we're letting French cheese into the U.S. like it's willy-nilly. And that is not fair. You cannot buy, for example, you cannot buy wines, in the U.S. Well, no, that's a bad example. I'm going to stay away from that one. There are all kinds of parameters put on American products that go elsewhere that are not reciprocated when we've been letting them in. And every one of those presidents I just said contributed to it. H.W., Clinton, G.W., Obama, and Biden. They all contributed to the idea that we were going to let other people bring their products here and sell them to our markets, but we're gonna take the hard road to try to sell our stuff in theirs. And we finally have an administration that said this week, nope, not going to do that. And he's going to punish the countries that have been really bad. And here's what's really funny. You've got China, who's one of the worst. And they are saying, well, if you put 34% tariff on our stuff, we're just going to do it to your stuff. Well, guess how much stuff they're selling of ours in their markets currently? Not that much to begin with. Guess who wants our market? Because we have the money and we have the people. We have the people that buy the stuff, and we have the money to buy the stuff. China needs our markets so bad. So how long do you think this 34% going each way goes? Here's why they're really pushing back. American products will be better made than Chinese products. And when American products can go into China for free, that's going to be the doom of the cheap way they make everything. They're going to have lesser quality in the stuff that they're selling to their own people, and their own people are going to go, how come the American stuff is so much better? And how come we haven't had a chance to have it before? And it's going to undermine Xi. It's going to bring down the totality of the Communist Party in China if they allow American products to just get into the middle class hands of Chinese people. So they can't, under any circumstances, allow our products to get into their market, because they do have a big market. They don't have a lot of money, but they've got a big market. We have a huge market, number one market on the planet, and we've got all the money. China wants to sell their cheap crap to us, and they don't want us selling our good products to the Chinese. That's why they put that 34% tariff on there. And it's not going to matter, because we don't sell anything over there anyway. In fact, if we want to go sell stuff over there, we have to give them all the trade secrets about how we made it. And you know what happens? They go and make a cheaper one. And it falls apart twice as fast. So I couldn't care less how much China's tariffing our stuff going into their markets. That doesn't matter to me. What does matter is that they play fair. And we finally have a president who's doing that. Speaking of fairness, I am so excited. We are back to the biggest cause of the year that I advocate for. My friends at Christian Solidarity International have given us the names of 208 slaves that we can liberate before year's end. And if you've never done this program with us before, please keep listening in the days and weeks to come, or just go to bringherhome.org and see the amazing miracle that it is to bring a slave to freedom and to give them a brand new life. Talk about choices, talk about life choices. We get to set people free. 888-342-1010 if you want to jump on board right away. 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010, or bringherhome.org. We have an enormous show. Nick Peterson, Ambassador Carla Sands, The Disciples, and Big Daddy Weave. Keep it right here.
From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com, That Kevin Show, all social media, thatkevinshow@gmail.com if you want to drop me a good old-fashioned email. My next guest is someone who knows a little bit about the old-fashioned ways, and he fights for some of the common sense of those old-fashioned days as he is battling culture wars, but also talking about things like immigration and other items for the Heritage Foundation. Mike Gonzales, welcome back to That Kevin Show.
It's fantastic to be on with you again, Kevin.
We appreciate it. Just this last week, you were testifying before Congress in light of some of the Doge commitments that have been handed out over the years. You were part of the team that talked about whether or not American taxpayers should still be funding National Public Radio and the public broadcasting system. I've had an opinion about this for a long time. If you don't represent what the nation represents, you shouldn't be being funded by the nation. People in Washington have felt differently for a long time. Why is that?
Well, that is putting it very succinctly. They refuse to give any respect to the half of the country, the more than half of the country that is conservative. They don't air our views. They deride us. They ignore us at best. And then they turn around and dictate to us and say to us, but you must pony up. You must pay, give us $500 million, even more than $500 million a year. Take money from your families and give it to us, even though we're going to denigrate your views and tip the scales in favor of your opponents. And yes, I testified saying very resolutely that no, we should not continue to have state media. The idea, I'm a journalist. I think I'm not a journalist anymore, but I used to be a journalist for many.
Well, you still write a column. Commentary is journalism. It's just a different.
Right. I have a weekly column at the Washington Examiner. But I was a foreign correspondent. I traveled with the Mujahideen. I was arrested in Panama. I was there when China took over Hong Kong. I covered the introduction of the euro in Brussels. I know that a reporter can keep his biases in check, and that's not what NPR and PBS do. But I tell you that even though I was there, I testified, Congressman asked me questions. I was the only one who was asked questions about his written testimony. I was by no means, and I mean this in all sincerity, the star of the show. NPR CEO Catherine Marr self-immolated, and I think her disastrous appearance in front of the Doge subcommittee will mean that this time they really do get defunded.
Well, there's reasons why that I feel like should be happening, but I've also noticed with great irony that particularly PBS changes its tune every time that they have the fundraisers going. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, you've got like Les Miserables, again being shown for the 50th time. If this is the kind of programming you appreciate, then send your money to. But I'm like, why do they get both? Why are they allowed to ask for money and also demand it from the taxpayers? It seems like it's just two sides of the same coin that they're trying to steal.
Well, they have a membership model that works. I think their membership model will help them succeed.
Not enough to do what they want to do, evidently, because they come asking $500 million from us.
Well, I think that what will happen is that people like Mackenzie Scott and George Soros and the Tides Foundation and the Ford Foundation, the list of the cast of characters who come in and pony up and give them the money. That means people say to me, "Well, Mike, what that means is that they're going to fall even more into the hands of George Soros and in the very progressive wing." And my answer is, I don't care. I really don't care. George Soros is an American. I don't like what he does at all, but he can do with his money what he wants. Mackenzie Scott can do with her money what she wants. She wants to give that money to NPR. That's fine. And I don't care that you have a liberal voice. I'm not like Catherine Marr. I don't want to extinguish, views with which I disagree.
Side. Yeah.
I don't care that the New York Times exists. The New York Times is actually run by a guy who used to be my friend. But he probably would, if he saw me coming down the street, he will go into a store to avoid me now. I don't know. Maybe he wouldn't. But I don't care that MSNBC exists. I just care deeply that this injustice of taxpayer support for NPR and PBS exists. And I don't understand why everybody is not as incensed as I am.
Well, here's what I think a lot of this is just ignorance on some level, Mike. People don't understand. They think that NPR and PBS are funded through primarily donations. But to your point, it was interesting. A number of years ago, there was a lot of complaint about Rush Limbaugh having too much influence, and something had to be done about limiting the amount of influence that Rush Limbaugh had on the talk radio airwaves. And so a bunch of people got together and said, let's start Air America. And Rachel Maddow was part of the lineup of Air America. And that thing lasted about 14 months, I think, in its healthiest version. And then it started having to reduce and go away. And the reason that they did, it wasn't because anybody tried to take them off the air or prevent them from espousing their views. They just simply found no audience for what they were trying to force feed to the American people. And they tried to make the argument that it was that Rush in some way had so much influence on people. He was brainwashing them into denying their natural liberal instincts. And so even a product that they almost wanted to argue that they needed to be subsidized because the influence of this one conservative was so powerful. No, the truth is, in a free market, and in a free market of ideas, the best ideas float to the top, and the best ideas survive, and the best ideas continue to thrive beyond what people would like them to sometimes. And I think the same model needs to be applied to what we're talking about here. If PBS and NPR can go find big, deep pockets to keep them on the air, and there's an audience for it, then they'll be fine. And if they can't, then maybe they don't need to be there because they're not meeting the needs of the people that they think exist.
Yeah, and that's really it. It's amazing to me that people on the left are now complaining, shrieking about the fact that conservatives, through, as you said, through the free market, have been able to claw back a presence online, have, the podcasts, the manosphere, all these things that are now increasingly giving, airing conservative views. I don't think, to be honest, that Trump would have been elected in last year in 2024 if Elon Musk had not bought Twitter and freed Twitter to all views, ugly views, good views, beautiful views, bad views, and let the truth rise, which is what is happening before our very eyes on X.
Yeah,
there are people saying things on X that I deeply disagree with, and some are disgusting. But they have a right to be there, and they have the right to compete with my views.
And at the end of the day, the best ideas rise to the surface and everything else floats away. So there's no risk in free speech. There's no risk in free expression. Let people say what they want to say. We are all smart adults, and we know how to listen and choose and discern for ourselves.
Well, we don't have.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
All right, it's a discouraging reality, but there are Christians and Alawites being slaughtered by the Syrian government that came in, dethroned the Assad puppet, as they called him, and said that they were going to bring a new sense of peace and calm to the area. I'm not sure what the rest of the world thought, but my guest, Dr. Joel Veldkamp, didn't believe them for a second and thought it was only a matter of time. And he said so on this show long before they revealed their true colors. Joel, over the weekend, there was a story that came up on Fox News that said that Christian groups are forming militias to try to defend the Alawites and the Christian populations. You have to have some level of support if a formal military is coming against you. What level of coordination, effort, money, resources do these groups have to defend themselves?
Honestly, I don't think very much, Kevin. I think, in CSI in our work, we've come across some of these groups, especially in the capital city of Damascus, who basically formed like neighborhood watch type associations to protect their neighborhoods from looting. And it's a very it's a good thing for social cohesion, but they don't have serious weapons and they don't have the ability to stand up against an armed attack. And when you listen to the Christian leaders in Syria, they're very alarmed, but they're also trying really hard to show that they aren't against the government. They aren't against their own country, both because they love their country and they want what's best for Syria, but also because they know if they go up against the new government, they will not survive.
Does the sense of nationalism pervade across faith lines? It seems to me that in that region of the world, the doctrinal viewpoint is more important than the national origin. Am I reading that wrong?
No, I think you're right. But I think if you put yourself in the shoes of a religious minority and you look at the majority, the Muslims saying Islam will reign supreme, all Muslims in the world are together, we're brothers against the infidels. What you want to say is not, well, Christians are supreme because you're 10% of the country. That's not going to work. So what you say instead is, no, Syria should come first. We're all Syrians because Syria is an identity that will allow you to live maybe as an equal, but at least as a citizen of this country where you're in the minority. So you'll hear that kind of rhetoric, especially from Christians who really want, a secular country where they could belong. But the prospects for that are dimming by the day.
Syria has been a problematic place for a while. I mean, there's been a civil war of sorts that was going on long before this last change of hands. What does that mean to historic biblical sites in that area of the world?
Yeah, it's an extremely bad situation. There's been enormous damage to Syria's cultural heritage in the civil war. Many churches have been destroyed. Many ancient sites have been badly damaged. And these are some of the oldest churches in the world, not just the buildings, but the communities. Right. It was famously when St. Paul was converted on the road to Damascus, it was Christians in Damascus who welcomed him into their houses. And we're really looking at the very real possibility that there will be no more Christians in Syria in a very short amount of time.
What can Christians and Americans do to try to help?
It's really tough to know right now, and I hate to say that, but it's good to engage with organizations like CSI, other organizations that are working on the ground with Christians in Syria. It's very encouraging to Christians in Syria to know that they aren't forgotten, to feel this solidarity from Christians in the United States, Christians in other places in the West. And we should tell, our leaders. I know, Kevin, you are always telling your audience to contact your congressman. Mm-hmm. This is something that your congressman should probably hear about. Syria is in a pre-genocidal state. we should expect huge massacres in the coming months, in the coming years. And Secretary Rubio has had, I would say, the right things to say about this so far, but we need to be encouraging that attitude. We need to be encouraging.
Well, as a committed Christian himself, I don't think that he sloughs this off. I think he senses that the threat is real. And I am curious as to how the Islamic groups that have control of Syria view the Trump administration, who is a very different animal than the Biden team. Things could run all over the world and he would never raise a finger to do anything about it. But in his first go, Trump formulated very strong positions on persecution of people on a religious basis. All right, Joel Veldkamp, thank you for keeping us up to date. We're going to be praying. We're going to ask our pastors to pray, ask our churches to pray. And friends, I want you to pray. And then if you would like more info, go to csi-usa.org and look up Syria. That's where they have all of their current information. Joel, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kevin.
Kevin McCullough coming back from New York. Don't go away.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com, That Kevin Show, all social media, and thatkevinshow@gmail.com if you would like to correspond. Would love to chat with you about anything on your mind. Mostly. Sometimes I get the weird emails, but apart from that, we enjoy it. We're thrilled to welcome a very talented actor to That Kevin Show. You knew him in I Can Only Imagine, and now he's back with a new powerful film based on a true story coming to Great American Family. Not until April 19th, but that's okay. We're glad to talk to him now. John Michael Finley, who plays the lead in Faith of Angels. John, it's good to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Let's jump right in. Faith of Angels. It's based on a true story. What is the, nutshell version?
No spoilers. 1989, a young boy goes on a Cub Scout retreat. They go every year. They plan to go into the mines with guided counselors, and little boy gets split up. He ends up being lost for, let's just say, more than 3 days, 3 days and 3 nights. And this wonderful community kind of comes together when all hope was lost to provide support to this family. And no spoilers, but there's a pretty happy ending.
What do you take away from the real life inspiration of this story? Because I'm sure that it had an effect on you in order to, play.
Absolutely. I've been fortunate. It's not my first time to play, to do a true story. It's even more of an honor to play someone that's still alive and get to talk to them and fellowship with them and chat with them. And it's challenging because they're kind of on set staring you down and you want to do them honor. But it's an absolute pleasure being in Utah for this and meeting these people in this community. They're all still alive. They're all still hanging out, and they all just want some closure on this, very important event that happened to them. And I hope that we provided a little bit of that. But telling these true stories is incredible.
There's this kind of balance that the film strikes. It's faith, it's suspense, it's hope, even a little bit of fear. What part of that emotional journey hits home with John Michael Finley personally?
Man, I don't want to admit fear, but I think we're all a little afraid of something. And I think that motivates us to make a lot of the decisions we make. I think John is motivated by fear. But I think he turns that fear once again into motivation, into rocket fuel. He just kind of is persistent enough to find ways to help. So I would say that kind of helplessness, fear and helplessness.
There is a good bit about hope in this movie. How do you see the hope that was kind of alive in the folks that were wanting to obviously find the child, but hope and faith, portrayed in story can oftentimes look very similar or be kind of identical. How did you see faith portrayed in this story? How did you see hope portrayed in this story in a way that audiences will appreciate?
I can, off the top of my head, I can think of two ways. First of all, just the title of this film, The Faith of Angels. To me, those angels were the community members that didn't give up, that stuck around. On day 5, they did a full community search all over the mountain, all over the tunnels. This is after law enforcement had given up hope. This is after law enforcement had kind of insisted that we kind of shut things down. I also think that this young boy, kind of having the faith of a child. He didn't panic, he just kind of sat there, probably not knowing what to do for 5 days. But I think it almost takes the courage of a young child to kind of find peace in that situation.
We hear a lot about miracles, and some people slough it off, some people don't. This story feels like a miracle in the kind of essence of what ends up happening. How does that story challenge you in your own view of how you view the world around you?
It's a great question. I think the miracle is kind of the only right word. And I think we all kind of colloquially think of miracles as these big, gigantic acts of something. And I think these little miracles happen every day. We had miracles that happened in 1989 when the story took place, and we had miracles that happened when we were filming. We had original props from 1989, original clothing wardrobe from 1989, all the people from 1989 were there. And those were little miracles that were happening every day that got us through this process.
Let's talk what it was like on set. Where'd you shoot? What were the circumstances? What was the atmosphere like? I imagine something emotionally charged as this, that there's a lot of, if people are trying to do method, getting into the characters, that there's some degree of that. What was it like?
It was powerful. There was an atmosphere that is not always there when you're filming a feature film. We were on location. We were in the Ophir canyons out there in Utah, just outside of Salt Lake City. It's near where the actual event took place. It's not the actual opening of the mine, but same canyon, I believe. We were filming right outside. The character that I play is John Skinner. We're filming literally in John's backyard. And so everything just kind of came together. Once again, these little miracles that kept happening on a day in, day out basis. As an artist, I'm a stage actor where everything's, manufactured, but filming something like this on a real set, outdoors, in a real mine, with the real clothing on, it makes a difference.
And the atmospherics, the temperatures, the things that they were going through, the things that, the smells they smelled, the feelings that were there. I'm sure it had to be very powerful. So it's coming up on April the 19th on Great American Family. That's the linear debut of when it airs. What do you think viewers will expect when they tune in that day?
I think they'll find hope, which we're all looking for. I think it'll reconnect them with their family, with their community. The story is also about community coming together, and to the outside world, this is just another 10-year-old boy, but to them, this was their Joshua, and I think that makes a difference.
Should we have a Kleenex box warning on it? Will tissues need to be standing by as families watch together?
I think so. And I'm not going to spoil anything. One of my favorite moments in a true story is when the film ends and they roll the credits and you see all the real footage from back in the day.
Right.
That's when the waterworks start for me. When it's all said and done, and you get that special moment of seeing the real footage.
Yeah, compare this to I Can Only Imagine, because they were both based on true stories. But what was it like? What's the difference for you between the two?
You're right. Both true stories. And I think to quickly state a similarity, they're both about connecting with these real people, with this real community. The difference is just a completely different character, completely different story. Just for me personally as an artist, it couldn't be two different characters, and that's really a fun challenge.
Well, it's coming up April 19th on Great American Family. You don't want to miss it.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
On the New Music Spotlight, back for a second appearance, it's Big Daddy Weave.
For the damage done, for the victories won, for the gift and for the grieving, letting go and moving on, for the thorn in my side, for the war in my pride, every single day of darkness, holding out for morning light. restoration. If my wounds could tell one story, let it be a testimony that you don't leave me where I've been. If this is healing, let it begin. For my highest low, for my frail ego, all the breaking and the mending, all the seeds that I had sown, for the dreams that died, for the tears I've cried, for the weakness that bears witness to the grace that you supply. There's a river that delivers me to freedom, and the currents of His mercy bring restoration. If my wounds could tell one story, let it be my testimony that you don't leave me where I've been. If this is healing, let it begin. Let it begin. Let healing begin. Let healing begin. Without and within. There's a river that delivers me to freedom, and the current of His mercy brings restoration. If my wounds could tell one story, let it be a testimony that you don't leave me where I've been. If this is healing, let it begin. Let it begin. Let healing begin. Let healing begin. Without and within. You don't leave me where I've been. If this is healing, let it begin.
Get the soundtrack. Search hashtag New Music Spotlight on Spotify or Apple Music.
Ziegler, thanks for coming on my show. I sold out years ago and I'm a coward. So you recently starred in the movie Snow White. Tell me, what was it like to play Snow Latina?
First of all, Stephen, it was weird. But I did enjoy reimagining the character as a woke Colombian woman who looks like a fish.
Well, I sold out years ago and I'm a coward. Are you surprised that everyone hates the movie?
Not at all. Society is far too racist and misogynist to appreciate the reimagining of a classic Disney princess as an ugly Colombian chick.
I sold out years ago and I'm a coward. You don't think making the movie a woke piece of garbage has anything to do with people hating it?
Not really. The original story had Snow White falling in love with a prince, but in the remake that's super weird and makes no sense. What kind of prince would fall for a woke Colombian woman who looks like a fish?
Wow, I sold out years ago and I'm a coward.
Thanks, Stephen. Excuse me. Hello? What's that? You have an idea for a movie that will save Disney's reputation? It's guaranteed to be a hit? And you want me to star in it? Come on, Stephen. Let's go see Bob Iger.
Thanks for coming, Rachel. This Snow White flop has unexpectedly tarnished the reputation of Disney. Who knew reimagining Snow White as a woke Colombian woman who resembles a fish would be so unappealing to audiences everywhere? But I have an idea for a movie that is certain to turn our bad luck around.
It sounds amazing. What is it?
I want to reimagine Hercules as a woke Colombian woman who looks like a fish.
Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
I sold out years ago and I'm a coward. I'll take that as a yes. We'll start production as soon as possible. In fact, we'll reimagine every character as a woke Colombian woman who looks like a fish. And because Rachel is the star, we'll sell out theaters everywhere.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from his Votes
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, Ambassador Carla Sands talks Greenland and Denmark. Sketch comedy from Nick Peterson, a cartoon from Al Berry, a visit from the disciples, Peter, Andrew, and John, and Big Daddy Weave is back in the spotlight. And now, to leave as much room as possible for the followers of Jesus later this hour, here's That Kevin at Assignment Desk Weekend.
For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. China has retaliated against U.S. tariffs with some tariffs of their own, matching the $34 billion worth. Because nothing says we're a stable global economy like an international version of a food fight at the G7 cafeteria. The Trump administration insists it's all part of a strategic economic dance. China's targeting vehicles, whiskey, and seafood, so basically they're coming after your Ford F-150, your Jack Daniels, and your Red Lobster date night, which means war, or at least a very stern TikTok from Pete Buttigieg. Meanwhile, fencing experts have officially defended the USA fencing trans inclusion policy in a move that surprised absolutely no one and confused nearly everyone. Trans athlete Stephanie Turner knelt during the national anthem, which upset fans of both sports and biology. In response, USA Fencing released a heartfelt statement written entirely in Olympic-level word salad, something about equity, justice, and the EP of the empathy. Now, your child has to fill out an FA-FSA form just to qualify for the fencing tournament. The only real winner here? Confusion. And maybe France. In Jerusalem, archaeologists made a stunning discovery during an excavation near the site of Jesus' crucifixion, proving once again that when you dig around in ancient Holy Land, you're bound to find something holier than your tax deductions. The find included Roman-era coins, broken pottery, and what might be an early version of a Chick-fil-A napkin. Back here in the Western Hemisphere, we head to the Dominican Republic, where an Iowa high school trip went off the rails when students had their passports seized and were allegedly held against their will, which, to be fair, is about what you'd expect when you book international travel from WeSwearIt'sFine.org. Parents are livid, State Department officials are mum, and the Dominican resort involved says it's all just a big misunderstanding. Somewhere, Liam Neeson is just waiting for his phone to ring. Also making headlines, Fire Festival, the sequel, because apparently some people haven't learned that if Ja Rule invites you to a music concert, you run the other way. In Virginia, a library decided to move a pro-Palestinian children's book to a different section of the kids area after backlash, specifically the section labeled Global Conflict for ages 5 through 8, Wall Street. And finally, to South Carolina, where a golfer met an alligator on the 17th hole. The viral video shows the gator calmly watching the man line up his shot, proving once and for all that even apex predators can't look away from a triple bogey. The golfer survived, the gator walked off unimpressed, and PETA is now demanding the PGA offer reptiles preferred pronoun respect. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
Me? No, the other guy dressed like Caesar from Temu. Yes, I need you to seal this and get it out for me.
What is it? Letter to the Sheriff of Nottingham?
Haha. It gets chilly in here.
No, don't. Revelation. Revelations? Should Revelation have an S? I think it should have an S.
No, I only had one. I'd prefer you didn't read that, actually.
Hey, come here. Take a look at this.
Nope, we're fine. Wow, there's two of you. We don't need to involve anybody else.
John here wants us to send these letters to Asian minors.
What? Asia Minor. I needed to go to 7 churches in Ephesus, Philadelphia, Philly, city of brotherly love, and cheesesteaks. Not that Philadelphia, although in that one, they spell my name Jawn. What? Never mind. It's a Philly thing. You wouldn't understand. Shouldn't it be Revelations with an S? That's what I said. Just send the letter. God. You just signed it John. Did you want to specify? Are you the Apostle John? I ran out of ink. Just leave it. It's fine. Or there's John the Baptist. Nope. I can assure you I'm not that John. John the Baptist wasn't from Sherwood Forest. What is your deal? Have you even seen Robin Hood? I love men in tights. Robin Hood. Men in tights. Whatever. John the Baptist was, let's see. Leonardo decapitated. Hey, who are the 4 horsemen? Wait, I know that. Jack, Jim, Jose. No, I can't remember the 4th. I don't think that's the 4 horsemen he's talking about. And then I saw a beast rising up out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns. Is this beast with the 7 heads and the 10 horns in the room with us right now? It's symbolic for a reason, so you clowns can't understand it. Wait, I've seen this before. Is this Game of Thrones? Oh, he's Jon from the House Targaryen. He's the father of dragons. And it's chilly in here because winter is coming. Oh, you guys gonna get a Subaru later? See, gimme, I knew y'all would do this. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Okay. You saw 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 lampstands, 7 stars. Are you on shrooms? No. 7 is symbolic, meaning fullness or completion. Sure sounds like you had more than one revelation. Hit me with the summary. Simplify it for me, for me, my friend. Here. God wins, Jesus reigns. Okay, so it's very important that we get that letter to the 7 churches. I already signed it. We just need it sealed and delivered. And then, I'm yours. Oh my gosh. Focus, please. What are we gonna do with that? We are gonna add an S to Revelation. That is bothering me.
Dad, do you think we could go into the mine now?
And these mines are like a maze. You could turn around so quick in here. Can you imagine walking around in this with no light?
Can't even see the opening anymore.
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
It's been nearly 24 hours since 10-year-old Joshua Dennis was last seen.
Joshua!
Someone's gonna find him.
Why can't they hear me?
Why'd you come back so early?
I guess I just heard a voice.
Voice?
Sheriff, I think I can help. I have a crew in there right now. They handle this kind of thing.
If he's in there, we'll find him.
What is he doing in there? Is he cold? Is he hurt?
We'll investigate all scenarios that could have happened to the boy.
All scenarios?
The boy might be lost in there, or he could be hiding or injured. Maybe the boy just doesn't want to say anything.
Why would my son be hiding? It just doesn't make any sense. We've been through every possible place he could be.
I think it's time we just consider the inevitable.
Are you a man of faith, Sheriff?
You don't run something that's important on faith.
Hundreds of volunteers reached out through letters, prayers, and even showing up at the mine.
I spent my life crawling around through those tunnels, and I can't shake the feeling that I should be helping.
Take heart, my love, 'cause when I see you, I see hope. When I see you, I see hope. There's a world that needs what you got to give.
We have a missing boy. If he has even a sliver of hope, we better respond to it.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show. All right, so kind of know my take on it. SNL may try to pillory it. There may be a lot of people that are saying this is dumb, this is stupid. former angry congressmen that can't get reelected. They may go on Twitter and complain about it. But none of that means anything if there's genuinely a strategic interest in forging an alliance or acquiring Greenland. So what does it mean? And how can we find out a little bit more about what it's going to take? I am very honored to be able to welcome former U.S. Ambassador to Denmark, a business leader, an advocate for American strength, both at home and abroad, whether it's foreign policy, energy security, or protecting America's borders. Ambassador Carla Sands brings insight that very few can. Ambassador, it is great to have you. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure, Kevin. It's great to be with you.
This last weekend, they couldn't resist themselves over at NBC. They had to put Bowen Yang on as J.D. Vance and reenact the picture of him standing there in Greenland, kind of making him look like a buffoon and like he doesn't know what's going on. That's far from the truth. In fact, that's about as far away from the truth as you can get. Why is the administration so interested in pursuing an alliance of strategic nature with Greenland?
Well, Kevin, it really is the $6 million question, right? Why is President Trump doing this? And he's doing this because the status quo is not going to stay the way it is. It's unsustainable. The Greenlanders are going independent. Denmark is refusing to look at the actual what's happening on the ground. They are pretending that they're going to continue to be a kingdom with Greenland and the Faroe Islands. But Greenland has said, we don't want to be part of the kingdom. We want to be independent. Now, they are dependent on Denmark for about $600 million a year in a kind of welfare payment. But what Denmark hasn't done and cannot do because they can't afford to is develop Greenland. So they get the welfare payment, but it kind of keeps them at a much lower per capita GDP than Denmark itself. Greenland is not thriving. It's just kind of, struggling along.
Well, then enters kind of the king deal maker and kind of the king idea man as to how Greenland could be developed. And I know it's like, 57,000 residents? I mean, we have a whole host of cities that are bigger in terms of population. But geographically speaking and from a security standpoint, this is a very significant location on the planet. And Trump, I'm thinking, is going to come to the table with lots of ideas about development, and then we're going to have some sort of security in exchange for that. How does it work? What does it look like? What do we have to overcome to get there?
Sure. Well, President Trump is very strategic. He's looking at the Western Hemisphere and saying, gee, the United States is not secure. We've got the Chinese owning basically our Panama Canal, the one we built with our treasure, but also our blood. He's looking at South and Central America, the Caribbean, saying, wait a second, China's the number one investor in South America and actually is the number one trading partner for many, many of these countries. China, Russia, Iran are in our Southern Hemisphere. And then we see Canada even being really very heavily influenced by the Chinese Communist Party. Things are not good. And so he's going to right this ship and he's going to make sure the United States is secure. How's he going to do it? Just like you said. Through more trade, there's going to be development in Greenland if we do come to a deal, which I believe he will, and security. That American security guarantee is very powerful. And there's ways to do it like a free association agreement, like Palau or Micronesia. And it's a COFA, a free association where they're independent countries, but they get the trade and the security agreement with the United States.
When we are looking at where they are geographically, and as former ambassador to Denmark, you've spent time in the upper echelons of the atmosphere of our planet. The North Pole and the Northern Passage are something that keeps coming up in conversation. Russia is actually deploying icebreakers to try to create greater access across the northern portion of the globe. But I think China has intentions for trying to stake out some claim to what's going on up there. Why is this kind of frozen Arctic region so important to those countries, and why should it be important to the U.S.?
Well, there's a whole lot in your question you just asked. First of all, there's the Northern Sea route, and it is controlled by Russia. They've elbowed their way into controlling it, and they do have their icebreakers. And China is working with Russia, and they cut off about 20% of the cost and time of transiting goods to Europe when they use that Northern Sea route. That is part of Trump's plan where he's looking at that. But China has declared itself a near Arctic nation in their 2018 paper called The Polar Silk Road. And there's a great book written by an author named Anne Marie Brady, and it's called China as a Polar Great Power. And in it, she explains how the CCP looks at the world from the two poles, the Arctic and the Antarctic, the North and South Pole, how they want to control both poles. They look at the globe as a globe, not as, oh, here's China, and we're going to spread out a little bit. No, they're looking very strategically. How do they control the trade routes? And I was just down in Lima, Peru, and visited this giant port, the biggest investment that the CCP's ever made in our U.S., in the Western Hemisphere, the Chankay port, a giant port for China to take the minerals and all of the treasure of South America and send it to China.
So it does come down, especially with China, to power and ultimately dominance in terms of what they want to see happen. What are our options? How do we protect our interest in the Arctic? Is Greenland part of that? Is this strategy part of the long-term strategy of Trump to basically tell China, no, we're not going to let you just do whatever you want?
Well, I think both are correct. So if you look at the map from the North Pole, and there's a great map created by the National Science Foundation right before I became ambassador. It's the most detailed satellite map ever made. And you can see there the giant armed Russian coast. It's much bigger than any other country's presence in the Arctic Circle. And then you see Canada, you see the US, and then you see Greenland. And Greenland is that key to blocking access to the US, but also in the event that the US needs to get to the aid of our allies in Europe. For instance, the giant GI-UK gap, and those are the seas around Greenland, Iceland, and the UK, thinking of Scottish Shetland Islands, the Faroe Islands of Denmark, all those giant seas where Russia and China are really freely and actively at work. Russia and China, there's the submarines, there's the cutting of the undersea cables that Russia does, and now China's also doing. So they're learning from each other, unfortunately, in their unbridled alliance between China and Russia. So President Trump sees the danger where the economic coercion by China, they tried to bring Greenland into their Belt and Road Initiative. The threats by Russia, how they pose, especially Denmark's very aware of the Russia threat. So all of that taken together, President Trump sees Denmark has this territory, Greenland, they can't afford to develop or defend. And President Trump says, okay, we're going to step in and we're going to do it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com, That Kevin Show on all social media, thatkevinshow@gmail.com if you want to send me an old-fashioned email. That's right, email is now old-fashioned. It used to be cutting edge, now it's old-fashioned. Anyway, that's how you reach me. We're speaking with former U.S. Ambassador to Denmark, Carla Sands, and she is really enlightening us on some of the, I would say, more sophisticated pieces of the Greenland puzzle that has been talked about. And I think, Ambassador, you know, the president thinks so far ahead that a lot of times he catches people so flat-footed by surprise in terms of what he's already thought through and kind of directed thinking towards that. By the time it hits the public airwaves and the U.S. is going to take over Greenland, you literally have comics go on late night. They don't know what to make of it. They don't think very strategically, and they're not aware of all of these geopolitical things. I wasn't even aware of some of the things you were telling us in the last segment, and I kind of pride myself on staying well informed. So I really appreciate your conversation with us. The hurdle that has been thus far is that Denmark seems to have felt like it got its feelings hurt by Trump floating this idea. And there has not been a ton of reaction one way or the other. But what I have heard is that Denmark is negative on the prospects. Do Denmark and Greenland stand in agreement in disagreeing with the U.S. about a potential alliance? Is Greenland warm to us? We keep sending people over there. Trump Jr. went there. J.D. Vance was just there. And I know that there have been other dignitaries that have been there. What is the situation on the ground, as best you know, because as former ambassador to Denmark, you have a pretty good idea of where they're thinking?
Thank you. I do. First, I wanted to express that the Greenlanders, because of the wealth under the ground there, they hunt and fish, and they have a decent economy from that. But because of the rare earth minerals and the energy under the ground and sea in their geographic location, they have the potential to have a much higher GDP per capita than, say, Denmark does. Right now, it's much lower. They don't have the same standard of living as the Danes, but they have the ability to have a much higher standard of living. 57,000 people on that giant island could be very rich and build a sovereign wealth fund, which we were trying to help them create with Alaska's great Governor Dunleavy, because Alaska, the state of Alaska, has a sovereign wealth fund that benefits and builds from their mining that they do and the excavating of energy, much like the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is now the world's largest sovereign wealth fund. So getting to your question. Yeah. The Danes are trying to poison the well in the relationship between U.S. and Greenland. It was very positive when I left Denmark as the U.S. ambassador on January 20th, 2021, the day Joe Biden was sworn in. However, Denmark is very upset about President Trump's approach. They don't want to lose Greenland. And so they've put out polls that have been done by Danish newspapers. They've made a law in Greenland that only Denmark, only the kingdom, can lobby and pay for influence in elections. They are trying to poison the thoughts of the Greenlanders. In fact, Usha Vance just last week was supposed to go to Greenland and go to their Super Bowl, which is their dog sled race, and wave the flag for the winner. And what happened is Denmark shut that down and then said, we don't want you welcoming the vice president of the United States' wife. Every country wants these high-level diplomatic visits. That's like the highlight of every country's year, is when they get one of the
PR gold. Yeah.
Yes, that is the goal. And what it brings is it brings goodies with it. Trade agreements or aid, whatever that country needs, stuff comes along with those visits from the White House. And so the fact that Denmark shut that down, they are furious and fearful that they're going to lose control of Greenland. But it's actually happening whether Usha Vance goes to the dog sled race or not. The Greenlanders are going independent, and it seems like Denmark is not recognizing reality.
So thumbnail this for us. What do you think the next timeline looks like? How long until Greenland is independent or forms the alliance with the Americans? What's next steps? How do you foresee it playing out?
So they will have to replace the welfare payment initially that Denmark sends to Greenland. And
that's
already
nothing for us, though. That's
right. I have heard that
we've been
President
sending
Trump,
that to produce Sesame Street in Iraq. So, I mean, I don't understand. Right. Like, we can find that.
So we are being more fiscally conservative in the United States. We are not throwing money, good money after bad policy. We are not doing regime change under President Trump, thank God. However, we will find the resources to not only replace what Denmark's sending, but I don't think Greenland actually wants to be a welfare state. They want to be a wealthy state.
Well, as the box office receipts showed from 1 week ago, The Chosen is going to be huge this spring at the theaters, as you can see the entire season on the big screen before it comes to the small screen. And last week, we spoke with the man who played Jesus, Jonathan Rumi. This week, I returned to the set of The Chosen to discuss Season 5 from the perspective of Peter, Andrew, and John, 3 of Christ's most beloved disciples. Here with Peter, Andrew, and John. Shahar, Peter's often depicted as this person that, you know, the church comes from out of, and he's got kind of like a will to him. But there's obviously a lot of flaws and struggles. As we're getting to the intense part of the story, how are you preparing for that coming change?
I think I'm learning to let go of any preconception that I had about what's going to happen. So I thought I'm on pretty stable ground when I got the mantle to become kind of a leader in this situation, right. And now it's I need to get ready to lose control and lose my ability to grasp what's about to happen, what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, and everything that happens during this season is a surprise and a shock, really a shock, from the things that are being said and the things that I see in front of me. So I think it's about it's just about letting go.
Yeah. Noah, Andrew is a sibling and he's a disciple, and Peter's having his struggles and Andrew's working with that. How are you pulling that out in your performance?
Yeah, it's something that's really important to Andrew. I mean, there's a lot of pride, not in a bad way, but a lot of love and wanting to support, you know, Peter as my brother. And so I think that anytime that Peter falters, Andrew in some way takes it personally and is worried for him. It's almost like a writer watching their play be presented to an audience for the first time, and you're like, oh, no, oh, wait. And you're almost like more nervous than maybe even the people on stage. And so I think that it sometimes when those things come up, especially in this season, Andrew would go to bat for Peter and also doesn't believe that some of these things being said may be true. Yeah. Not to get too more into spoilers, but
George, John's moving into a part now where Matthew's been the only scribe, and now John's going to start increasingly move towards that, you know, preparing to write a gospel. What has changed about where your character is headed? How much more is he taking in versus just experiencing, trying to preserve? Because obviously the Gospel of John is very important, and it's, you know, one of the longest lasting pieces of literature that we have. But how is George preparing John for that adjustment?
Well, I always say that his journey is from thunder to love, right? Yeah. And so he has to go from this zealous, passionate, emotional fisherman to become this disciple of love. And it needs to come with proximity, both to Jesus in a spiritual sense and literally in a physical sense. So what we see in season 5 is John start to actually see through the parable. It's almost like seeing through the matrix, and he's putting it all together and going like, oh, I think I know what he's saying. And by staying close to him and hearing things, he's able to detect what's going to happen to Jesus before the other disciples. Yeah. And it does lead to a tumultuous kind of an eruption within the disciples where they argue about what is ultimately going to happen to Jesus.
Well, this has been the gang of kind of dunderheads, like up until about the Last Supper. Like up until now, what's he talking about? Is it really happening? But this is where we say the stuff is about to get real. Yeah. And how much did any of you identify with the emotions of what your characters were going through heading into this?
Yeah, I think throughout it's all identifying with all of it. You know, it's all it's written in such a way that reads true. I don't know, to me it just reads very, very true. And so I would say throughout the show, since the beginning, since the first episode of the first season, it all read to me very, very honest And up until now, up until every season, the emotional journey read to me very honest, and I didn't feel like I need to summon up something. It just felt like a really honest take and progression of something that is happening that connected in a pretty seamlessly.
I do think that Peter is, like, for all of his faults and strengths, I think he's the most transparent of them all. And that's even where he chops the guy's ear off and, like, right up to the end. Like, he's just, there's no fluff about it. Anyway, thank you, gentlemen. Congratulations.
Thank
Look forward to it.
Yeah.
Can we grab a selfie real quick?
Totally. Yeah.
I want to do this for the famous Noah smile.
You must know something. I do believe that Jesus is most likely the Messiah.
Why?
Why what?
Why do you believe that?
I've seen too much.
Then why are you doing this?
I suppose I have not seen enough.
Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem.
You can run on for a long time.
My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of thieves!
By what authority are you doing these things?
My own!
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
We have a problem. Jesus operates entirely outside our jurisdiction.
Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees! Stop this at once!
The world is changing, and Jesus offers a vision to redeem it.
He's not the Messiah!
Tell him that God's gonna cut you down.
Declaring yourself a sovereign, Rome will descend on us all.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
The Pharisees are plotting to arrest Jesus of Nazareth.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
I want peace, just like you. If you go through with this, our alliance is over.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
Be right back. That Kevin. Serving it up with a no-drink minimum. It's That Kevin Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Big Daddy Weave and add the talent of Katie Nichole as we round out today's That Kevin Show.
There's torn up pages in this book, words that tell me I'm no good, chapters that define me for so long. But the hands of grace and endless love dusted off and picked me up, told my heart that hope is never gone. God is in this story, God is in the details, even in the broken parts He holds.
trying to pump you up with a little encouragement for your weekend. On a positive note, God is in the story. Kevin McCullough, we'll see you next time here on That Kevin Show.